Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Alliance Guys podcast. I'm your host, Jay Cal. With me is the modern day hero, Kevin Douglas, the former NWA World Junior Heavyweight Champion. They never found a champion as good as you afterwards. They just retired the belt. You notice there's no Junior Heavyweight title on NWA Power?
Yeah, you know what, man? I think we kind of touched on this as well, that they have a lot of belts already to try to book. The other side of it is that, as I said many a time already, just watching the show and everything, you put some junior heavyweight guys on the show with the guys they've got on there, and the work rate discrepancy might be so bad that, it may, the little guys always make the big guys look slow and clunky. So maybe they're just kind of a little insecure about what the junior heavyweights might do to the program.
Quite possible. So this is the Alliance Guys podcast, a presentation of alliance-wrestling.com. You can follow us on all the socials. I mean, we're on Instagram. We are on Facebook. We are on Twitter, YouTube, obviously, you're watching. You can find us on Anchor. You can also find us on Twitch. You can find us on, Tumblr and TikTok. If you're under the age of 25, I think that's where the kids are hanging out now, is on TikTok. So give us a follow, because we greatly appreciate your guys checking out what we're doing here. And this has been fun, guys. And Kevin has been a great addition to the show. And we are going back a little bit. I think we're talking about episode 12 of one of our favorite shows every week, NWA Power. And this was the show following the Christmas episode, in case you guys aren't able to keep up with us. And this was an interesting show, Kev, and I want to talk to you all about it. When I watch the show, I'm usually sitting at my desk. I've got one laptop on, watching the show. I've got my desktop on, leaving comments on Twitter, trying to follow the action. One thing that I've gotten in the habit of doing is kind of writing where the audience is on the live show to kind of tweet out, and then you can kind of compare week after week where the numbers are at.
Sure.
I was pleasantly surprised. Well, actually, no, let me take that back. Because this episode aired at 1 p.m. on Wednesday Pacific time, which I believe is 4 p.m. Eastern time.
Okay.
This was the New Year's Day episode, so it kind of threw things off, and I don't think they had as much live viewership because, number one, some people were still hungover from the night before. Number two, some people weren't aware of the time change for the episode. But I did want to point out that 23 hours after the show aired, there had already been 84,159 views. So what does that mean? Nearly 100,000 people watched that episode in one day. I think that's pretty awesome. So we start the show off with Tim Storm, and he's hot after Aldis. Obviously, he's got some heat with Nick Aldis, and he wants to kick his ass. That's what he said
for sure.
And then we've got Nick Aldis referring to Morton and Storm as the Randy Rams of the world, which got a good pop out of me, because as much as I love Tim Storm, the point that Aldis is making is kind of clear. He's actually saying what you've been saying for weeks.
Yep.
That it's time for the old class to move on and bring in the new class. And I think there's something to that. Now, storyline-wise, of course, the Rock and Roll Express are your tag team champions. Right now, Tim Storm is in the process of trying to acquire the NWA television title. In fact, he's supposed to face somebody later tonight in that TV tournament.
Sure.
So we get the show starts off, actually, after all of that nonsense and shenanigans, we get an exhibition match. We get Shooter Stevens, our NWA third degree national champion, taking on Sal Rinauro.
Yeah.
Something I want to point out here just real quick is Shooter Stevens is 37 years of age. Sal Rinauro is 37 years of age. I just want to plant that seed now. So the match starts off, and it's a typical grappling match. I mean, there's nothing real fancy about it. Shooter Stevens is looking for that submission hold. Sal Rinauro actually looks pretty good in this match. Probably one of the best matches he's had so far on the program. I think this is actually his first or second. This is his first one-on-one match, I believe.
I'm laughing in the background, Jay, because how about the karate kick attempt made at the beginning of the match by Shooter?
Of course.
I mean, because he knows. It cracked me up.
Look, he's a third-degree Mongrovian karate master. Karate! And I think it kind of tickles me. And we go back and forth with the question mark. And, I was just rewatching our last podcast, because that should go up today. And we get to a point where I was telling you how much I love the fact that Aaron Stevens is a heel, and I'm totally good with the question mark being a babyface. I was not happy with his victory over Colt Cabana, but I've been very happy with the character and the way it's progressed throughout the show. And the interactions between Aaron Stevens and the question mark, I think it's been very fun, and it's fun to me. I think it's a fun gimmick to see, Aaron Stevens now using more of that Mongrovian karate.
Well, I would say on the undercard for undercard storylines, it's certainly probably the number 2 storyline. Going in the NWA right now. I do like, of course, we've talked a little bit about Eli Drake, Ricky Starks, the television title, the national title, which is kind of, starting to kind of take its rightful place in this as the second kind of storyline in the show. And all in all, I found it funny that I'm watching Sal Rinauro, right? That's how you say his name.
Rinauro.
Sorry, I knew I was going to get it wrong. But Sal Rinauro, I thought it was funny because as he's trying to lock up with Aaron Stevens, you can see him trying not to laugh.
Right.
I mean, how do you not? But then what about but then Aaron Stevens with the karate thing, the kip up. I mean, I was impressed, and I'm very critical of Aaron Stevens in terms of in-ring work. But in reality, I felt like, as funny as this is going to sound, this was some of the better in-ring work that he's had so far, where he just had a straight match in the middle of the ring. The moves were hard-hitting. They were stiff. He did stuff that looked like karate. I'm sorry, karate.
Thank you.
So yes, yes. I just got a pop from the audience. So, but no, I'm gonna go out and say I think this was Aaron Stevens' best match in terms of from a technical wrestling standpoint. I think that it was really good. I know that's crazy to say that, but also Rinauro. He did a great job there in what we call, I guess you call it enhancement talent, so on and so forth.
Sure.
If I'm the booker, I'm the guy booking the show. I'm looking at Rinauro and watching him and saying, he's doing he did a good job. And, if there are young wrestlers listening to the show and you ever find yourself in that position, which, I did for the first couple of years of my career, not too much after that, but hey, when you're good, you're good. But
it is what it is.
It is what it is. So, but when you find yourself in that position, if you do a good job, if you do what the promoter asks you to do, and then you make yourself a little bit memorable without trying to upstage the guy that you're wrestling, you'll get noticed. And promoters do notice this sort of thing. Bookers notice it, and other wrestlers notice it. So I'll give Rinauro credit too, because he wasn't just a speed bump. He was, he had a couple of moments in there where he took the little glimmer of spotlight that he could get, and he did well with it. And it was a good match. It was a solid match. The promo after the match with Murdoch and Stevens, I think we're obviously on a collision course there. So, I think Murdoch and Stevens, I'm just going to ask the NWA right now, know what we're going to end up getting in this match. Okay. I know we're going to have question mark involved. I know we're going to have some shenanigans, but keep it to a minimum, like let these guys go out there and work. Murdoch is a great wrestler. He's good in the ring. His moves are all solid. As we saw in this match, Stevens is a good worker. Guys, it's entertaining. Just the entertaining part is also in the ring too. And
absolutely,
this is not, again, I know that it's a throwback show, but again, you don't want to insult your audience. And we have come a long way since the 80s in terms of what wrestlers can do in the ring. And I don't care what you say. Like, don't try to tell me that the eyeball test, that the wrestling from the 80s will pass the eyeball test, as opposed to some of the stuff that we see today with some of the top in-ring workers today. It doesn't work. It doesn't pass the eyeball test. And we've seen this with Ricky and Roberts in-ring stuff still running 1985 spots. In their own mind, they're like, oh, well, that stuff still works. I get a pop. You know what, brother? You get a pop because of who you are and what you've accomplished, and people love you, and they don't want to frankly come up to you and tell you, look, your work looks like garbage, because they respect you. You need to go back and watch the match. You need to go watch the match and see with your own eyes that your work doesn't look that good anymore. But that's retracting backwards. Again, let us see 10, 15 good minutes of Murdoch and Aaron Stevens in the match, then give us whatever shenanigans that we know we're gonna get. But don't have question mark come out 3 minutes into the match and have a bunch of crap where we've got double teams and Murdoch's out on the floor. You know what? Aaron Stevens is better than that. He's a creative guy. He can come up with ways to put heat on Murdoch that doesn't involve having to have outside interference. That way, when the outside interference comes along, it's kind of one of those things like when Ric Flair would have outside interference. Not all the time did he really need it. And he showed the fact that he didn't need it, but it's what makes a heel great is that, even if he could have won fair and square, why? Why not do something to put one in the, in the craw, so to speak, or give the fans a jab to the side and make them mad. So there's my soapbox for what I hope is going to be a good match. Hopefully at the next big event between Murdoch and Aaron Stevens.
Well, right now, we still got Murdoch in the TV title tournament, so we don't really know what's going to happen with him just yet. But speaking of Murdoch, he does come out, and he's not happy with Stevens. In fact, he kept referring to Rinauro as the young guy, and that's why I wanted to point out that him and Stevens are the same age. Murdoch also took a few opportunities to mention how Stevens was taking liberty with the young guy who's new in the ring. I also want to point out that Aaron Stevens has been a pro wrestler for 19 years. That's pretty impressive.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? Trevor Murdoch, he's 39 years old, and he's been in the ring for 21 years. That's really impressive. Sal Rinauro is a former Ring of Honor World Tag Team Champion. Sal Rinauro is 37 years old. Sal Rinauro has been wrestling for 22 years, longer than either Stevens or Murdoch. So it made me laugh that they kept calling him the kid and you're taking liberties. But let's be honest, guys. Let's be honest. Sal Rinauro has been wrestling longer than both of these guys. Maybe he hasn't had the worldwide success that Trevor Murdoch has had or Aaron Stevens. But let's not pretend like the audience is dumb. And that's something that we'll be talking more about in the next week's show too, because I really kind of feel like the NWA is getting a little bit lazy, and they're starting to insult my intelligence as a fan.
Sure.
And I'm the NWA supporter, and I'm the one that says, sis boom ball, rah, rah, rah. This is a great show. But stop insulting me because it's not funny. This show is good enough where we don't need to create false narratives. Again, you could say Stevens was taking liberties with Rinauro, but let's not call him a kid. Let's not call him a youngling or a greenhorn or any of that shit. Excuse me. I feel that's insulting. Let's not live in a world where it's only the NWA and the NWA only exists. We know for 100% that the NWA has acknowledged other wrestling promotions in the past. Hell, they had a working relationship with Ring of Honor. Their talent appeared on the All In show. Again, I don't want to be insulted. I don't want to be told that that Rinauro is a young guy, because he just isn't.
No.
And
no, we have the internet.
Yes.
You know?
Yes, absolutely.
One more time, it's not 1985 in every aspect.
No.
You know, be realistic. You know, we have the internet. This is not the day and age where we pretend like other wrestling organizations don't exist. You know, just it was dumb. It was dumb when we used to do it. It is dumber even now because again we have Google, we have the internet, we can find out all this stuff. So again, like you're saying, you know, suspended disbelief is the biggest art form that professional wrestling has to offer. I love having a little Twitter spats, mostly for good, not usually for worse, with my friend Hammerstone, who wrestles for another big time company, and would love
MLW.
Would love to see him on NWA at some point.
I would too.
If they can make it happen, and I could probably even put in a word if need be. But you know, he was saying he had posted something on Twitter the other day, and it was, you know, he had his finger scratched, and he said, you know, you say wrestling's fake, you know, brother, kind of thing. And of course, you have some guy come on and go on his rant about, you know, well, wrestling is not real and all this stuff. And, you know, my response was, you know, this is probably the same. This is the same guy that goes into a movie and says to the guy next to him, if he has any friends, you know, oh, look, Chris Hemsworth's not really Thor. You know, nobody, if you're still having this conversation in 2020, I'm just going to say you're ignorant. I'm just going to say it. You don't know first of all, you're probably not a fan. And if that's the case, nobody in the wrestling world cares about you. Just being honest, we don't care because you're not a fan. It's like Star Wars fans. People are going to make fun of Star Wars. Oh, look, or, you know, look at these guys. Well, you know what? People that love Star Wars could give two flips about what you think about what they like. And wrestling fans to me are the same way. And being a wrestler, it's the same. I'm at that stage where, like, you know what? Nobody's having that conversation anymore. You know, like like you and yourself are having it, and you're really just a jerk for even having it. You know, wrestling is supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be what it is. But don't insult our intelligence. Like you said, you don't want to go to a movie, watching a movie, and go, okay, I know I'm watching a superhero movie, but this is just dumb. This is just out there, and it's not well done. Okay? That's what I don't want to see from the National Wrestling Alliance.
Are you talking about Aquaman?
Man, I enjoy Aquaman. Did you not like Aquaman?
Well, that's another discussion, but no, I did not.
Well, I guess I'm so easy to please, I think, just because I'm just so happy to have a movie being made. That I'll take it and I compare them to each other. Was it one of the top comic movies that have come out of all time? Definitely not. But was it as bad as Spider-Man 3? Definitely not.
Okay, we're gonna have to have this conversation. Sorry, guys. Sidebar: we got to talk a little bit comic book here because I'm a big comic book movie nerd too.
Sure.
Kev, I think our takes are probably in line with most of these movies. I don't believe that everything DC makes is bad. I loved Wonder Woman. Thought that was probably the best comic book movie all year when that came out. I didn't love the Suicide Squad, but I enjoyed it.
Sure.
I really thought Shazam was really good, but still probably the best, like the third best comic book movie when that came out. Aquaman, I watched it on an airplane, and if I could have walked off the airplane, I would have. The CGI looked weird. Jason Momoa looked weird. Amber Heard looked weird. It never really felt good to me.
Yeah.
And Amber, the beautiful woman, and I'm sure lots of ladies love staring at Jason Momoa. It didn't work for me.
That's interesting. So I saw it in 3D. And so maybe that has something to do with maybe why the CGI didn't stand out to me as much. Because I went and saw it on the big, giant, IMAX 3D, sitting right in the middle of it. I mean, I have a ritual when it comes to going to see superhero movies. Obviously, being a former superhero myself.
You're the modern day hero.
Yeah, and I mean, even champion of domestic tranquility. And again, even to this day, there are times when I have to strap on the cape and do some undercover work as a superhero still. But so if you see some sightings of a guy, in a cape and doing some weird stuff, it's probably me. But
man, You're setting me up on all kinds of tangents. My buddy a few years ago made an independent film about real life superheroes. It was actually called RSH, Real Life Super, or RLSH, Real Life Superheroes. If you ever, I don't even know where it got put out at. Maybe it never did, but he followed the footsteps of real life people dressing up in costumes and doing the heroic things they could do in their neighborhoods. And one of the guys he came across, wearing his cape, wearing his mask and everything else. And he was just handing out water because that day, that's the only superhero thing he could do on a hot day was just hand out water.
What a guy. What a guy. That's what heroes are.
I applauded, and I thought that was great, but it's,
Staying on, well, I'm going to stay on our tangent because, again,
sure.
We do cover a wrestling show, but we have to be something that's do something and be something maybe that's different some of the rest of the shows. And this might be one of those things because you can, on this show, you actually get a professional wrestler who did travel the country that can can pull the curtain back, not only from locker rooms, but in their own life. And there will always be times, I'm not a big guy, so super strength or, people would always ask me, you're a superhero. What's your superpower? And I would look at them and I would say courage. And they would laugh, and they go, ha, 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 And I said, being a superhero is not about what powers you have. I said, what powers does Batman have? Besides, obviously, his own admittance being rich. He's like, none. And it's like, exactly. Being a hero has nothing to do with superpowers. You can have superpowers and be an absolute terror. I saw the movie Brightburn the other day that I just kind of go, wow, that's what a villain is when you have the powers of a superhero, but you choose not to use them for the betterment of mankind. But even if you don't have superpowers, what makes a superhero is what you do with the life that you have. That's what makes a hero is courage. And my final thing is courage is not the absence of fear. It's standing in front of a 300-pound man that wants to kill you and fighting him anyways. That's courage. Mm-hmm. Everybody gets fear, but fear. Everybody experiences fear. Courage and bravery is when you do it anyways. When you're afraid and you still go for it. So there's your motivational thought for the day. Moving along.
And, you can follow Kevin on Twitter Kevin Lee Frazier. Am I getting that right?
Yes.
He has more motivational and comic book takes that you can make sure you check those out. So back to the action, back to the NWA, back to power. We're talking about Murdoch, again, unhappy with Stevens taking liberties with the kid and says, you wouldn't do that to me. And Shooter Stevens, says of course what Shooter Stevens would say. Well, if you feel so confident that you can beat me, why don't you put your spot in the TV title tournament up against me? And Murdoch is never one to step away from a fight because Murdoch, well, he looks like he was bred to fight. And so they have a match, and all of a sudden we're seeing a different Trevor Murdoch. It's not a slobber knocker. It's not a Pier 6 brawl. This is technical wrestling from Trevor Murdoch.
Yep.
And we see a lot more aggressive version of Aaron Stevens, one that we haven't seen yet.
Yep.
Aaron Stevens the entire time in NWA has been very aloof, very, pardon the expression, Kev, chicken shit heel.
Sure.
Right? I think that's what they call it.
Yeah.
But this wasn't that. He actually got in there and he was a lot more aggressive. And I loved it. I loved seeing Aaron Stevens kind of taking that next level. And again, maybe, as you were saying earlier, maybe this is the matchup that the NWA needs for that national title. Murdoch and Stevens.
Well, and I agree with that. I think, again, give those guys some time in the ring, to have a match. Because I think what you have, we already knew that Trevor Murdoch was at that level. But I think that Aaron Stevens, and kudos to you, Jay, because honestly, you saw this before I did. You've always been, not to say always, but since we've been doing, since I've been on the show, you've definitely had a high opinion of Aaron Stevens, and me, not quite so much. But this segment of the show, I felt like he kind of stepped out from being just another, coward heel that does the typical shtick to somebody that actually showed, hey, I've got some in-ring ability. So, let's see an in-ring match. Let's see these guys go out into deep water and have a legitimate 20-minute national title wrestling match. Maybe the NWA would be kind enough to give us a stipulation of nobody at ringside, and if Stevens gets disqualified, maybe he loses the belt. So maybe we can get a straight up match. That'd be great.
And I don't want to brag or anything, but I wasn't super familiar with Damien Sandow. Like, I did not. I mean, I knew who he was. I knew the whole pairing between him and The Miz, and he was like the stunt man. But I don't follow the WWE very closely. So Sandow, or as we call him now, Aaron Stevens, is mostly new to me. And so watching him live in Atlanta and also watching every episode of NWA Power, I feel like he's really grown as not only just a performer, but as an entertainer. Mm-hmm. Again, being able to shift from that, he can go in the ring. Yeah. We saw it. We've seen it now.
Yep.
But the fact that this whole time leading up to it, like, I kind of thought maybe he couldn't. Like, I don't want to say the guy couldn't wrestle, but I thought maybe he's one of those guys that, relies more on gimmick than actual in-ring ability. But he kind of has both.
Yeah. And I'm glad to see him covered up in an outfit where we're not having to look at him wearing, skin-colored trunks. I don't know. I was very impressed. I enjoyed this match,
and seeing him wrestle. And seeing him wrestle in a gi was pretty cool. Like, it just, his character's evolved in what, 11 weeks of television, 12 weeks of television. Mm-hmm. He's evolved, and I think that's awesome. You need talent to be able to evolve. Of course, Murdoch wins the match with the Indian Deathlock, a move made famous by his mentor, the former 8-time NWA World Champion, Handsome Harley Race, King Harley. And I thought that was a great homage to the former champion. We transitioned quickly from that to, they called it the NWA Power Surge. Now, I'm not sure what this is. I'm not sure what the plan is. My dog just came in to see me. Every week now, we're getting a new visitor here on the show. We get the Pope, Elijah Burke, or D'Angelo De Niro, whatever you want to call him, and he's talking to the Outlaws, which is Eddie Kingston and Homicide, and Pope is kind of talking more about Kingston could be the next world champion, and I think you and I both kind of feel that too. That maybe he's underachieving right now, and we also so I mean, that's kind of cool. I like this whole these segments. I don't know what they are going to mean. I don't know what they're going to do.
I don't personally, I don't think they always have to, mainly because it's unique. It's different.
Yeah.
I'm not, of course I like the wrestling action, but it is something that's kind of interesting, and it does give you a little bit more of like, almost like a down to earth feel from the wrestlers. It does give them a chance to maybe develop some of their storylines, given the brevity of the show, and because maybe they want to have more matches, maybe a way that they can progress some storylines or start some narratives or plant some seeds that they want. Maybe they can do that through these little segments, and it's actually pretty creative. Again, as long as they don't take forever, and we're not watching a bunch of talking, but maybe they're using them to propagate or move storylines or plant ideas. I'm good with it. I liked it. I liked it. I think we had another one later with the women.
Yeah.
And as long as we're doing something with it, and it's informative and it's fun to watch, I don't have much of a problem with it. But kind of like what you're saying, you're not quite sure what they're doing with it, but in a way, it doesn't have to be overt. It just can be something where it's different. No one else is doing this. And again, how about we progress some storylines with it, which, like you said, got some seeds planted. Hey, well, we've been talking about him being a world champ, so it's not going to be ever going to be my favorite part of the show, but it's not all about me either.
So yeah, and I see what you're saying, and one of the things Billy Corgan said during the press conference that kicked off this whole NWA Power was that the show that they're trying to build wants to lend itself to the meme culture.
Yeah.
And if you don't really know what that means, basically, they're trying to make it where the show can be interactive. They want people to interact with the brand. We don't want you to just watch the wrestling. We want you to interact with it.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to take a clip like this that's less than 2 minutes long and being able to put it on Instagram or on TikTok or on Twitter or Facebook, wherever, and have people comments right away. If that's what this power surge is, I'm totally good with it.
Sure.
If this is something that's going to keep continuing to happen. Okay, so cool. We get this segment. Good segment. Next up, we have Eli Drake.
Yeah.
Of course, I think he's slowly become the MVP of the show. Week after week, we're getting these great segments with him.
Yeah.
He's more and more looking like he is going to be one of the biggest stars of the NWA. And he wants a match. Pure and simple. Everyone else is getting title matches. His name is left off the TV tournament. He's not getting called for a match with Aaron Stevens. He's not getting a title match against Nick Aldis. So he wants a match. And he's asking, who wants to be his tag team partner? Cabana comes out, of all people. And he wants Eli Drake to quit talking so much mess about his pal, Mr. Ken Anderson. Which I could see that because, you know what? Friend of my friend talking trash about my other friend, I don't necessarily want to see that. Or he's my buddy. He ain't heavy. He's my brother. Let's not put this dude down. But I think Eli Drake has every reason to. He's beat him twice in the ring. Cabana brings up the fact that, hey, you guys have both attacked each other. You both did things. The feud is essentially over. Let's all move on. And, Drake isn't about that. And basically what it comes all down to is Cabana's got Anderson's back, and Eli Drake is still looking for a tag team partner.
So you didn't leave this segment kind of scratching your head a little bit, though?
Yeah, I think they're trying to plant seeds. And again, when we watch next week's episode, it's going to make a little bit more sense.
Sure.
Yeah, they're trying to plant seeds. They're trying to, stoke the tea leaves. Something's going to happen. Sure. They haven't really. We don't know yet what's going to happen, but I mean,
but shouldn't something like that at least spark my interest, because it didn't do that?
Yeah, no, and so right now you're scratching your head.
Because I'm just going, I got Eli Drake out here. He's the guy I like to listen to. And again, we've had nothing but good things to say about Colt Cabana. Certainly didn't think his interjection made a whole lot of sense. Don't think him and Ken Anderson make a whole lot of sense in terms of as a team. And yep. I just kind of go, I want to see Eli Drake wrestle, singles matches. And again, like you said, maybe they'll show me something later, and again, I'll buy it. The other thing, I think Eli Drake's getting the 1980s Sting treatment, where all you really wanted to see was Sting get the freaking match against Ric Flair, and instead all you ever got was Sting for the TV title, Sting for the U.S. title, Sting for the tag title, Sting in all these random feuds, and it's just like, let's put it off. And sometimes I look at that and I wonder if that's the promoter's booking, or is that the champion trying to keep the one guy that can take his belt away from him as much as possible, jockeying in the back, doing things that maybe the contender doesn't know is going on. I'm not going to lie and say that I've done it myself. I knew when I was champion that inevitably Chase Owens was the guy they wanted to see take the title from me. And I tried my hardest to get as close to him as I could early and stay as far away from him as I could late, because I wanted to beat him and show that I was a better wrestler and a better champion, that I was the solidified champion. But once I did that, the closer I got and the more time I spent on his home turf, I knew the closer I was getting to the politics working in his favor. And I just wonder, and this is a shoot. I'm not saying this is not a storyline. Does Nick Aldis see this? Does he see this, and is he doing his best to book himself as far away from Eli Drake as possible, and put himself in a position as far away as he can, like Ric Flair probably did with Sting during a lot of what I felt like in his career, because it just smells fishy to me. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I see Eli Drake as top of the card kind of guy. So, maybe conspiracy theory, but it wouldn't surprise me either. I've seen things like this happen before on a legit, on a shoot level, where, hey, if that guy's the incumbent, I'm trying to keep him away as long as possible. I did the same thing with Chase Owens.
So let's be honest about this for a second. Let's honestly look at this. No one's a bigger Eli Drake fan than Eli Drake, period. Mm-hmm. End of sentence. And no one's a bigger Nick Aldis fan than Nick Aldis.
Yeah.
Now, I love the champ. I think he's doing a tremendous job. But some of the things that you're saying, would it surprise you if you found out that was true?
No, not at all. And I can't say that Nick Aldis would be stupid or I think he was a bad person. Not at all. I think it would be I'd do this again. I was a babyface for the majority of my career, the second half of my career, a lot. And it has nothing to do with babyface or heel. It's good business for you. Right. The longer you hold on to the belt, the longer your name goes down in the record books as champion, the more your legacy is cemented. And if you're telling me that a guy like Eli Drake is the hottest thing on the rise, like I said, like I'm staying as far away from his home turf as possible. I don't want to be involved in his storylines. I don't want the guys I'm involved with being involved with guys in his storylines. And you see this.
Well, you just triggered a thought for me, and that thought is this. If I didn't want to face Eli Drake, if I didn't want to put him in the same ring as well, then I would have made sure he was in that TV title tournament, which he's not. So that's just food for thought.
Sure.
But let's keep moving along, because now we have girl power. And I'll be honest, everything that the Power Surge, I think, did right, I feel like girl power did wrong. And I don't want to catch a lot of heat for this, but I don't lie to you guys. I'm always going to tell you how I honestly feel. And this felt like locker room talk from the ladies. Yeah. And we had Allison Kay, who up until this moment has been defiant, has been aggressive, has been dominant, dare I say, the female version of Stone Cold for the NWA. And here she is sounding kind of like depressed and whiny and Marty Bell, I can't believe she did that to me. And then Tasha Steelz, who is brand new to the show, literally has only had one match on the pay-per-view. She's the one that's giving the advice. Well, maybe you should do this. And then ODB chimes in. Well, maybe this. Mm-hmm. It's like, come on.
It didn't feel very thought out. Let's just say that. Like you said, and we've seen this a lot with these shows, is that sometimes they look brilliant, and then sometimes they don't. And I think a lot of times, and this is just true of the wrestling business in general, and in life, you set things up to be a certain way. You have a plan, you have a plan of action, but then moments happen that shift things around. And wrestling is full of these. I mean, our lives are full of these. There's times when you're working with your boss and it's time. It's time to take a risk. It's time to say something, maybe time to ask for that raise, or time to make that comment, or do something that is going to be a bit of a risk. But if you don't take that risk, you'll never know what the outcome might have been. And a lot of times that not taking those risks can lead to stagnation in a career, especially in the entertainment world, but also it can lead to the end of your career. And I just think that, sometimes I'm going to go on a limb that the talent are the ones making the moments here more so than the booking committee. Some of the great, and I'm coming down on this side of things, that no one said for Eli Drake to go out there and, hey, go steal the show.
Right.
It's more like, okay, here's your TV time. We kind of want this. And and whatever leeway, and I'm certainly one that would do this myself. Whatever leeway they give me, I'm going to take every inch of that leeway to try to get myself over, try to get my story over, and try to jockey myself in that free space to get to the next level. And someone that I think needs to be doing this, and we're going to talk about him in a little bit, and you started to see him do it, and I'm glad he has, and that's Tim Storm. Is, man, it's time to start taking risks. It's time to start saying stuff that you wonder, should I say this or not? And sometimes I think that's how you get yourself up to the next level. That all being said, what does that have to do with this segment? I think the girls in this segment were just lazy. They didn't really see that this is an opportunity to tell a story about ourselves and gain some interest about ourselves, whoever that may be, and they just kind of mailed it in.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, that's what it looked like.
So this leads up to the next match, which is Tasha Steelz versus Marty Bell with Melina. Now, at this point, there's roughly 3,000 people watching on the live stream. Now, 3,000 people might sound like a lot, but this number is actually down kind of low. And it's the second week in a row where this number is kind of low. But again, I'm going to chalk this up more towards this is the wrong time of the year, and there wasn't a lot of notice that they were changing the time slot around. So I'm going to chalk it up to that as opposed to, say, people have become indifferent. Because, again, going back to what I said earlier, 84,159 people started watching this or had watched this show in the past 23 hours.
Yeah.
So they did get some mileage out of the show. It's just maybe not when they were expecting it. I definitely think Marty Bell has improved. She might be my most improved for the women's division. I think both her and Ashley Vox definitely looked better on these rounds of TV tapings as opposed to the ones that I was at, because I really felt that they looked unprepared. They looked a lot better now. I think that there was one thing I wanted to point out about Marty Bell is I think the character she's playing too, she very much looks indoctrinated by Melina. Like, she doesn't make a decision unless Melina approves of it. And I think that's good storytelling because, again, it's almost like there's a cult type following with Melina. We saw last week or 2 weeks ago when she chose she chose Thunder Rosa's opponent, ODB, as opposed to challenging Allison Kay. And it just felt like Melina has a plan, and these other two don't really know what's going on, but they're going to follow it blindly because they've been indoctrinated. They're hypnotized, they're brainwashed, and that leads a lot of credibility to what you were saying a few weeks ago, that Melina and Thunder Rosa might come to a head and have some sort of falling out. There's points of this match where I feel like Marty Bell did look lost, and again, you can maybe chalk that up to the indoctrination, or maybe she just was, I don't know, just not as good.
I mean, I'm sorry, but Melina still, I gave her some props last week, but she's still a quagmire, as a whole, and I don't think it's on purpose, because if it's really on purpose, I'm just saying. I mean, I saw some stuff on her Twitter that made me kind of scratch my head and go, okay.
Someone should have taken away her Twitter a long time ago.
Well, and that's what I'm saying, is that, I don't know if this is something that she is doing because she knows what she's doing. I don't think it's a plan. If I'm Thunder Rosa, I'm going to ride that name as far as I can until I ride right face to face with it, and I'm going to steamroll right over it. And I'm going to take that name and that credibility, and I'm going to add it to me so that I have the momentum I need to be the next women's champion. That's what I hope I see happen. I hope the run with Melina is a short one, because it's awkward. I feel like it's stunting the growth of some of the female wrestlers that are in their primes. And when you talk about indoctrinated, I mean, again, she has these weird followers on Twitter that if you say one thing wrong, they lash out at you like you stole their kitten or something, or you talked about their grandma. And
yeah,
so again, and I don't think it's that it's the indoctrination. I think it's the awkwardness of really having no plan and no flow, and Marty not knowing how to work on the fly as well in a circumstance like that. Because if it's me and I have this person outside acting weird and I'm on TV, you know what? I gotta look good. I'm not about to let somebody who's heads in the clouds or who doesn't really know what they're out there doing ruin my shot. And so I'm gonna have a good match no matter what. And so in Marty Bell's case, she's gonna have to put the distractions aside and realize that you get one shot at this, and you got to make the most of it. And if you look at Thunder Rosa, you can see that that's the difference. Is that Thunder Rosa is out there to make a name for herself and to really make an impact in any way that she can. And you see Marty Bell kind of, head in the stars or head in the light, kind of not grasping the opportunity that's at hand.
And, there's something to be said again about the trajectory of these careers, because you talk about someone like Marty Bell, who has mostly spent her time on the East Coast. She's had a few matches with Ring of Honor, the New York Wrestling Connection, has made appearances for Shimmer. And then you look at someone like Thunder Rosa. And again, I know her backstory a lot more because she's a SoCal. She's from Mexico, but she lives in Texas. But she spent so much time in California going back and forth, wrestling in multiple promotions. I mean, she's just not, her growth and her what's the word I'm looking for? Maturation has been incredible. Yeah. I don't think you and I have talked about this story, and I'll try to make it brief. But when the previous ownership of the NWA was still around, and we're talking about the Bruce Tharp era, I'm not supposed to say his name, but I'll say it, Bruce Tharp. When he was around, there was a promotion in California called Vendetta Pro Wrestling. And Vendetta Pro Wrestling is actually responsible for a lot of the Cauliflower Alley Club shows. So
sure, yeah.
Every time
I'm familiar with the guy who was in charge of that.
Yeah. So every time they had an event in Las Vegas, they'd bring out all this talent, and it was awesome. Well, one of the things Vendetta Pro Wrestling did was they created the Western States Heritage Tag Titles. They also created the Western States Heritage Singles Title, homage to the belt that Zbyszko wore. Some people even said it was kind of like to spur our old buddy Dave Marquez, who had the Hollywood Heritage title that at one point was the NWA Heritage title.
Yeah.
Anyways, getting back to the point, the tag team that had the Heritage States tag team titles were, I'm not sure if you ever worked with these guys, but Shane and Shannon Ballard, the Ballard twins. They're well known in California and kind of on the West Coast. In fact, for like since 1997, they're one of the most talked about tag teams now. Of course, they're in the twilight of their career, but they were the tag champions, and it was Thunder Rosa and her tag team partner Holly Dead, the Twisted Sisters. They actually defeated them and won those tag titles. The NWA Vendetta then changed the titles to the NWA International titles. Well, then Holly Dead and Thunder Rosa took those belts to Japan and actually defended them in Stardom, which is the top Joshi wrestling promotion in Japan right now. Yeah. So, and the point I'm trying to make with all of this is Thunder Rosa's well-traveled.
Yeah.
She's a great wrestler, and she's, whether it be in the ring with a man or a woman, she's confident, she's comfortable. And we see that now, seeing her doing MMA fights. She's a skilled athlete.
Yeah.
She just is. And probably better than maybe anyone on the roster.
No, there's no doubt. Like, that's not even we knew that from day one.
Right. So to bring all this back, Tasha Steelz wins the match with no outside interference. Melina didn't get involved. Thunder Rosa didn't get involved. Marty Bell just lost. Straight up. So cool for Tasha Steelz to get a clean victory. Cool for the women's division to have a match that didn't go to pieces and have outside interference. Good for the NWA. Surprising that Marty lost.
I guess, but I think at some point you have to start building some of these other wrestlers.
Right.
And I think Tasha Steelz is probably, if you're just going to say, aside from, of course, the champion, I think behind Thunder Rosa, she's probably your next best competitor. And again, not saying that ODB is not a great name, but her in-ring work is not, it's not top notch. Let's just be honest. And that's not a knock against her. It's just in ring, I think Tasha Steelz is probably your next strongest in-ring person behind Thunder Rosa and the champion Allison Kay. And so again, you need to have that victory. We need to have like one of your top good guys besides the champ having a victory. And so I felt like it was a good call. I think Marty Bell needs a little drama in her story anyways to keep her interesting. So it gives it gives you that. And again, I think that we're just barely scratching the surface with the drama that's going to unfold in the women's division over the next few weeks.
And again, the thing that needs to be said is the show is so early in its infancy. They're planting seeds now because there were no seeds.
Yeah.
With the WWE, they have callbacks, and you'll see angles that have played out years ago be brought back to the forefront because they have these established storylines. The NWA is still trying to establish things. So of course there's going to be some hiccups along the way.
Yeah.
But I think, we're only talking about the 12th episode of this show. So, of course, there's going to be some growing pains and maturation. And, they have to plant the seeds now in order to get to that next level. And speaking of the next level, we have some more NWA TV title qualifying matches. As they pull the names out of the hat, we get Zicky Dice, which isn't one of my favorites. And then we get Caleb Conley, who, I'll be honest, I love Caleb Conley. I can't wait to see this match, and I'm looking forward to it. The next qualifying match we get is Tim Storm versus Nick Aldis.
Yeah.
And the crowd goes crazy because, you know what, this is a match we wanted to see. Aldis gave Tim Storm a fair match at the first episode. In fact, let's just look at the show, right? So we have let's look at their feud, the Tim Storm versus Nick Aldis. Now this feud that they've had, this mountaintop versus the Aldis era or the Aldis Crusade is what he called it, really comes down to 3 matches. Okay, 3.
Yeah, you'd think they'd wrestle their whole lives based on the way they
right. This isn't Steamboat Flair. This isn't something that's been building up for years. They've had 3 matches. Their first match was on November 12th. November 12th, 2017.
Mm-hmm.
Storm versus Aldis for the Championship Wrestling from Hollywood title. Well, we all know Tim Storm came home with the belt that night. So that's 1-0, right? Fast forward a month, almost a whole less than a month after the fact. CZW, the armpit of pro wrestling, gets the next title match, and it's Aldis winning the world title in the Dive Bar Pro Wrestling Combat Zone Wrestling, making it now 1-1, right? Aldis is your champion. Well, that's when things never turn back because it's almost 2 years before Tim Storm gets another opportunity to wrestle for that title, and that is at the Power TV taping on September 30th, 2019. And Aldis wins. It was a clean match. Aldis was the better man. But they've only had 3 matches, so to see Tim Storm versus Nick Aldis, this will be the 4th time that they faced each other. That's exciting. Fans are going nuts with good reason. But, of course, it's not personal. It's strictly business. We get much shenanigans with Nick Aldis, who says that he's lost his smile. It's not fun anymore. It's time to back away from the TV tournament. The only reason why he was entering it because there's no one there to face him, but he doesn't want to risk injury, so he's gonna advocate the spot and give it to his own friend, his own confidant, his own partner. We're talking about Royce Isaacs, somebody who, I don't know about you, but I know we talked about him last week. I'm pretty high on the guy.
Sure.
Being able to watch him in wrestling from Hollywood for quite some time, I think very highly of Royce Isaacs. We'll be talking a lot more about him on the next episode. And so the match is set.
What do you think? You excited? Were you excited when you saw that this was going to be? Because I think you probably knew just as much as I did that Nick Aldis wasn't about to wrestle Tim Storm.
No. I mean, look. I like Royce Isaacs. I like Nick Aldis versus Tim Storm a lot better, but they're not going to do that again on free TV, and they're not under these circumstances. You know, nothing lasts forever, but Tim Storm is not to get another shot at the NWA World's Heavyweight Championship. That was the stipulation.
Yeah.
Will that hold true for the next 12 months? I don't know. But I did not, it's very much bait and switch, but at the same time, what did you expect?
Yeah.
You're not paying for this. This is free. They're going to, if the demand is there, that match will happen, but you're going to pay for it. So we get Royce Isaacs, who again, I'm high on, and this match was pretty good. I thought we saw a lot of good wrestling here.
Yeah.
One thing that I need to question though is, dang it, why is Royce Isaacs always beating up on these old guys? I mean, the photo I'm going to put right here, right now, is him punching Robert Gibson right in the soloplex. And I popped when it happened then, and I popped when it happened now. And I'm a Tim Storm fan, but I like seeing Isaacs beat up on older dudes.
Hey, maybe you're onto something. Again, we all need to get an edge every now and then to give us something to be known for, especially if you're not the main storyline, or if he's part of the main storyline, but he himself is not the main storyline.
No.
And so it's little things like that can really give you that opportunity to wrestle some maybe possibly really influential old guy in a career, in a feud like that can make a career.
Yeah. And we'll see. Kind of losing my thought here.
Sure.
Give me a second.
3, 2,
yeah, breathe.
1. Well, okay, I'm gonna say something real quick that I've noticed.
Go ahead.
Since the spear with Camille.
Yeah.
And again, these are the things I watch, and I keep an eye on pretty much all that's going on, and I'm still kind of head cocked to the side with why they decided to throw the other blonde girl into the mix with this team. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. It seems to me like somebody in creative thought, oh, we got a hot girl, let's put her out there. But at the same time, I feel like after the kind of the spear, I thought, maybe we're gonna see more from Camille, not less.
Yeah.
But ever since the spear, it feels like she's just a non-issue now. And yeah. I in her carrying, and again, I've been a big fan, and when I say fan, I she's okay, but I felt like there's a lot there with her in terms of potential and talent that can be developed. Given the fact she does have a sports history, we know she's an athlete. The look is there, and I just feel like she just has somewhat regressed as a character. And I kind of go, what was the big, was there no plan? And again, this comes down to savvy. This comes down to experience. When you are a little more seasoned, you recognize stuff like that, and you go straight to creative and go, hey, wait, I was a big deal. Why am I just back to arm candy? I was the deciding factor in a title match. I was the cornerstone piece that revealed a great team, and now I'm just standing around making faces.
And
that wouldn't have set well with me, because I would have had something to say to creative personally, like, hey, you put me in a position of prominence, now you got to treat me like it.
And I think too, the thing we have to keep in mind is the show isn't shot live week for week. So what we see is what was been taped over the course of a 4-hour evening.
Mm-hmm.
So to be honest, maybe what we see tonight won't be reflected on next week's episode, right? And then,
sure.
There is only 4 hours of taping going on, or 3.5, whatever it amounts to. So there's a lot of things we don't see. But you're right. In this episode, it just feels like, well, where is Camille, and at what point does she play? But if we could get back to the match,
sure.
One thing I really did enjoy about this is Royce. Let's just call him Royce, because Isaacs is hard for me to say.
Yeah.
Royce got some great offense in. In fact, he almost had that moneymaker, that clutch suplex that he does, and Tim Storm was able to fight out of it. But let's make no mistake what this match was, and ultimately to make Tim Storm look good. And I think it did its job.
Yeah.
Tim Storm looked awesome to me.
He
didn't look like a 54-year-old washed up has-been who's done. He looked like a guy who's ready to take that belt from Nick Aldis. And that's something you and I have been talking about for weeks. Where's that guy been? Feeling sorry for himself, talking about Mama Storm. No, that's what he needed to do, was to get out there and, pardon my French, kick some ass. And he did it.
Yep.
And he got the win. And that's Storm's first win on this TV show. He hasn't won a single match.
Well, I think too, you're looking at a match that could have been on any TV show anywhere.
Right.
That's right. And the NWA needs more of that, because especially on their television program, because again, it is a competitive, market, and people are competing. You are competing with people's viewership, and not everybody's as diehard NWA as we are, and aren't going. Not everybody's just going to stick it out just because they love the product and they have some history with it.
Right.
You have to have more matches like this, and frankly, you have to have less matches. No offense to the guy that fought Aaron Stevens earlier in the match. No offense to him, but if he's a world champion tag wrestler, they should be having him in tag matches, not
agreed.
Not these matches that don't do a lot. You need to have a little bit more of your top talent out there wrestling. And again, getting to see Tim out there wrestle, he looked phenomenal. I thought Royce Isaacs selling, ring positioning, it wasn't a perfect match by any stretch, but it was a good match. And then of course, once I saw the Rock and Roll Express come out at the end, I just went ahead and closed out.
We'll talk more about this in the next episode. Agreed. I do want to say this. I think there's room on this show for those enhancement matches, and in fact, I think that's pivotal, because you don't have a tag team like the Dawsons meaning anything unless they're beating somebody who's of lesser talent. And I'm okay with some enhancement matches, but I want to take this word exhibition match and throw it in the garbage. I don't want to hear that phrase on this show again unless it's the TV champion versus the world champion and they're having an exhibition match. That's fine. Right. I'm good with that. But when I see Aaron Stevens with his third-degree national title, I don't want to hear exhibition match. Yeah. I want to see him defend the title. When I see Nick Aldis with his 10 pounds of gold wrestling Trevor Murdoch, I don't want to hear exhibition match. Just throw that in the garbage. Let's just have a match. Let's not call it exhibition. If you want to call it non-title, that's fine. Let's get rid of that phrase exhibition. And again, more Royce Isaacs and Tim Storm style matches where you have two guys who are capable in the ring. We need more of that. The NWA kind of shortchanged the fans by removing that three-way match that was supposed to lead to Into the Fire that put James Storm in that position to win the title. And I know that Mr. Dave Lagana was on my podcast talking to me, telling me why it didn't happen. Or he didn't say specifically why, but he says there's a whole slew of reasons why they didn't air that episode. That's fine. But it was one of the more competitive matches that the show's had. And I think they do need to have both. Why not both? We can have very good, very entertaining matches with top tier talent that only go 6 minutes and 5 seconds or 10 minutes. It doesn't need to be a full 60-minute Iron Man match, but let's work both of it in. I want to see guys like the Dawsons get built up. I want to see, I want to see Caleb Conley go through a metamorphosis where he goes from an undercard enhancement wrestler to a challenger for the TV title. Why not?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
and it's like, and I made a little stab earlier in our show about well, they took the junior heavyweights out of the equation so that we didn't expose the work rate of the bigger guys.
Right.
But the truth is, and in reality, like that, there's a lot of reasons I say that, because there were many a time that I was the semi-main event as a junior heavyweight match, and the match that had to follow my match. Sorry guys, I had to apologize hundreds of times. Sorry guys, but we're just that good. It happened. I mean, it happened many a time to the point where people would ask not to wrestle after me, and I said, well, if that's the case, promoter, why not put me in the main event? And then the light bulb went off. They're like, that's a good point. You know what? So you don't have to wrestle after Kevin. We'll put him after you. And so many a times. But the point is that work rate, in ring stuff. Okay. And I'm not going to name off other shows, but in my humble opinion, one of the best shows going, if not the best show going, the reason it's so good is because we've got wrestlers in the ring wrestling, wrestling matches. And granted, it's the selling and the sometimes the suspended disbelief is questionable. But in my opinion, having no work rate or having very little work rate or having limited work rate on purpose does the same thing. Because to try to tell me that two top-notch wrestlers are going to go out there and wrestle for only 6 minutes and come up with a decision, you're doing the same thing. You're cheating the fans a little bit out of what really could be a good match with two guys that can go 12 to 15 minutes, not 6 minutes. Again, I know you're trying to get everybody on the show and all that, but in the end, the marquee on it is wrestling. It is the National Wrestling Alliance. And let's have some of that. Let's have more of that. And as far as I'm concerned, you can get more bang for your buck in the in-between stuff by saying a whole lot more and not trying to be so convoluted. And have some wrestling. You can still do it. It's not rocket science, but sometimes we try so hard to be interesting that we make something really simple more complicated than it has to be. I'm going to name off, and I'm going to keep talking just because I think it's a good. I have a good point. I'm on a good flow here, but I can name off right now. Nick Aldis, Thunder Rosa, Tim Storm, Eli Drake. Even some of the washed-up guys like Ken Anderson. You've got Colt Cabana, Trevor Murdoch. We've seen from Aaron Stevens. We've got the women's world champion, apparently from all her fans, Molino. I'm making a joke right now. But we've got a who's who of wrestlers that can get in the ring and go. That right there is their number one draw. And granted, I understand that we want people to see the pay-per-view, but here's what you do. You give the people great matches on TV, but you give them greater matches on your pay-per-view. You don't give them half measure matches on the TV show and then give them good matches at the pay-per-view. Sorry, but that precedent isn't set anymore. The precedent is set that people expect above and beyond. If they're going to spend more money on a wrestling show, on a pay-per-view, than they would on a monthly subscription, you got to really make them want to do that. And then you got to deliver when they do that, or they're going to go back to their $10 a month monthly subscription because they can get that and more for half the price. And so again, maybe these are strong words, but it's not like the talent's not there.
Right.
Don't give me that. You don't have to cover anything. These guys can go. And if you need somebody to go out and be your workhorse every week, well, then give me Tim Storm 3 or 4 times a week. I mean, come on. These guys can go. These guys are not babies. So that's my soapbox moment for that. Give me more in-ring work, not just because I think that's what you need, but because I do watch wrestling all over the place, and I do know what's working right now. And right now, the fans want to see what's on the thing, what's on the marquee, as they would say, wrestling. Give us some good wrestling. You got great wrestlers. That will draw more people to the TV show on YouTube, which will draw them to the matches at the pay-per-views. If you need someone else backstage that can coach these wrestlers along, that can give you these tidbits and knowledge, granted, I may not be the biggest name. You can give me a call. I'm not cheap, but I'll help you out if you need it, NWA. And I do have a few skins on the wall.
That drive from Orlando to Atlanta, that's not too bad, right?
Well, you know, a plane ride and a drive isn't really that much difference. I do have frequent flyer miles that I can use. You know, I don't think it would be. Again, these things aren't rocket science, and I bet I'd be cheaper than Jim Cornette.
I'm sure. So you're right. And I hate to do it because we are running out of time. Like my camera just said, you're running out of time, so you better wrap your stuff up. So real quick, R&R came out to finish the show, and much like you, I hit end because I did not care. I did not want to see it. And next week, we're going to talk more about how much I don't want to see the Rock and Roll Express anymore.
Woo!
And after, I just want to say that I did refresh the numbers when I was done watching this. Again, I watched this episode the Thursday following, and 23 hours after the fact the show aired live. So when I started watching, there was 84,159 views. That's a lot. By the time I was finished watching, there was 89,722 views, which means a full 5,000 more people watched the show. Nice. So it is gaining momentum. People are watching the show. Don't let people tell you otherwise. Don't let them tell you that Cornette's gone and the show's terrible. That's not true. It just isn't. The show is actually getting better every week. We have our complaints, but honestly, the show is getting better.
We do love it. I do love it. I'm having a blast watching some of my guys. And by the way, when I was talking about in-ring workhorses, don't forget Ricky Starks on that list.
Woo! And Ricky Starks will be joining this podcast at some point, and we're going to go down memory lane with Kevin and Ricky and talking about all those fun times that they had. But for now, this show's got to end because my camera's literally telling me to die. So well, that's going to do it for us. Again, you can follow Kevin. His wrestling Twitter page, wrestling YouTube page is Kevin Douglas 247. Check him out. Check out what he's not just talking because he had a match here or there. He was a veteran who held the World's Junior Heavyweight Championship, traveled all across the country with it, made his name in Hollywood, wrestled everywhere in between. You guys can't take for granted what Kevin says. You can follow me on all the socials at the Alliance blog. We'll be back really soon, hopefully within the next week. We got 2 episodes to get caught up on, so we'll be there soon. But until next time, guys, we'll see you at the matches. Make sure you have a good night.
Later.
Bye. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, that was fun.